Alright, welcome to another tutorial. This time, the subject is lightning. So, I'm doing a Tybalt's trickery. I've done a few of these for friends and personally. This is the first one that I've sold. And I really want to get this lightning looking super good, especially if, someone's paying full price for it. So, I've been playing around with different lightnings for this, and I think there's different lightnings in Magic that people kind of like create in their art. So for this lightning, it's the super thin, super like chaotic, lots of movement lightning. And I think I'm going to do a lot of that. Like you can see, there's definitely like explosions in the background. I guess we'll go over that as well. So lightning, explosion, all sorts of crazy stuff. So I'm just going to get a really nice like yellow with a good amount of white in there. Just start doing these little like flashes in the back. So of course there's like people who say like there's a specific what do you call it, like a specific order of operations when it comes to painting. And I don't believe in that. So a lot of people say, oh, you have to go light to dark, or dark to light, or light to dark, or foreground and then background. And yes, of course, you would want to focus on your foreground as the last step, for sure. And a lot of people go light to dark. I'm sorry, dark to light, right? So you're like, okay, let's lay down all your dark stuff and then like only put in your whites and highlights and stuff like that afterwards. Of course, you can do that. That's absolutely fine for you to do. But for me, I kind of just work with what I have going on here and what part I'm working on and what I want to focus on. So right now, I have my like kind of base colors going on in the background. So for me, I'm just laying down even more base colors that I can mess around with. And right now, I'm working with these yellow, like explosion balls, glowing pieces coming out of the background of wherever Tybalt is exploding from. Sorry, I don't know a lore of this guy. I was actually watching a lore video of Tybalt. Seems to be a guy just doing his own thing, kicking down doors, tricking the shit out of people, just tricking the shit out of a bunch of gods and stuff. Respect that. Respect anyone taking down the pompous. So pretty much what I'm doing is I'm trying to find these little explosive marks. And as I'm like laying down these little balls and little like phantom lines, I'm learning more and more about the art. So I'm learning more about, how to get this really sweet striation from black to red to orange to yellow. So as you can see, as I'm like learning, I'm adding more and more colors into it. When you're using a wet palette, if you've been following me to do all your tutorials, you should be using a wet palette. When you use a wet palette, you're putting really thin lines and pieces of paint down. So this stuff's really thin and really small, little amounts. So you can blend really well. You can add a bunch of different layers and really get that look. Because I mean, think about it. The person who made this painting, I don't know if this one's actual, if it's digital or not, but even if it's digital, they're going to do lots of layers. They're going to do lots and lots of layers. Whether it's paint or it's, a digital layer, if you've ever done any, graphic design, there's lots of digital layers. So as you're making your layers, of course it's going to be built up. It's going to look best because you're blending as you're going. You're finding these, quote unquote happy little accidents, and that's kind of what you have to do with your art as well when you are altering. Like what this artist did, you have to think about what this artist did. This artist was given a prompt, was given a, okay, I need you to make Tybalt, you know, throwing something in your face, or Tybalt, you know, being mischievous or something, you know what I mean? It's going to be a really big, cool spell. We need, you know, those are the prompts that this artist got. So this person probably started sketching a little bit, finding what ideas they want to get down. And even though you're given a roadmap by being the altarist, you're also not given much of a roadmap when it comes to these little edges. Like, I don't know if these little balls are continuing out. I'm assuming he's got some balls on the left side and some balls on the right side. So that's what I'm giving him. But it's a exploratory thing, and you can explore on the card if you've done enough of them, enough cards or enough of the same card. You can learn to explore just a little bit more. Oh, I rhymed. And that's kind of what I'm doing as well. So because I'm using extremely, extremely thin layers, because I'm using a wet palette, and if you could see, I'm not making a big glob. Like, these globs are just the actual colors, and then I'm stretching them out to make like these little pools of color, and that's what I'm using. So I'm using extremely small, extremely thin, sorry, I was making sure it's still recording, extremely small, extremely thin layers to create, especially on this card, the deep explosion that's coming out of him, or behind him, into the edges. So what I'm using, this is a new one that I'm using, it's a zero liner as a paintbrush. So we're going to get a very, very long tip, and it goes down to a very, very fine point. So if I want to load it up a little bit, I load it up about a third in with paint, and I can, if I'm barely touching the card, I'll show you right here, I can get a really, 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 really thin line that I can get a lot of paint on and pull that line for pretty long ways. It also is very good because you keep that one color on your paintbrush for a good amount of time. You can hit a couple of these little lightning bolts, hit a couple of spots, and not have to keep on dipping back in. And sometimes when you dip back in, you're picking up a different color. You know, it's if you don't, like for me, I don't prepare every single color I'm going to need for the painting. You kind of just create as you go. So I mean, right here, like this red, I have a pretty good amount, but for most of these colors in the Magic cards, you're not going to get them straight out of the pack. I don't know what pack you're using. I know that a lot of the 40K painting pots have a ton of different colors, but I mean, think about it. You're not going to be able to get every single pot. So for me, I'm working with probably, I'd say about 50 different colors. Maybe more, maybe less. 50 different colors. And from those 50 colors, I mean, I got my favorites. I got my go-tos. You know, you got your primary colors, you got your ochres, you got all the stuff that you normally use. And I'm making a lot of these colors on the fly. So when you have a nice long liner, you get to pull a lot of that one color onto there. And you can drag that one color that matches perfectly, that you're like, whoa, that matched so wonderfully. You can drag that across multiple places and have the liner be pretty well saturated by the time you come back to it. Alright, so how to make cool lightning. If you're watching me right now, you'll see my cool lightning I just made on the right side. The key to good lightning, in my humble opinion, is to get your paintbrush with a with a really fine point, whether it's long or not. I actually have a 000 here with a very fine point. It'll probably be coming in handy when I'm doing all the very small little bits of lightning. But you want to put down, like I said in the beginning not to do, you put down your dark and then you go up to your light. A lot of lightning, if you see in the, like lightning photography, has multiple colors into it. You see like a lot of like purples, a lot of like really faint yellows and stuff. So what you want to do with your lightning that you're making for your card is that you want to give it that like faint coloring behind where you're going with it, and then put the really, really like yellow for this, or like it's gonna be like a white yellow, or a lot of times it's just a straight white. So make sure to remember that you're gonna put down your base color or multiple base colors. Like for this, I'm gonna put down a couple red and orange spots, and then do a really faint yellow as the lightning, quote unquote, like bolt. So it's like a background color, and then you have the inside bit. What am I trying to say? It's like the skeleton of it. So you have like the body and then the skeleton of this lightning bolt, and that's the way that, as far as I've been doing, Magic cards. For most of the Magic cards, that's the way they do lightning as well. Sometimes it's one color, sometimes it's just a one little like orange flip that comes out of it, and but most of the time it is multiple colors. You're gonna have like, I did a lot of oranges, a lot of yellows here. I did a couple red ones because there's kind of like this like red craziness coming out of him. So I'm gonna try to hit what the artist is doing, but I'm also trying to, again, if you're selling these things, if you're creating these for the internet, for yourself, for your friends, even to just be a better artist, got to give yourself a little bit of room to give it your own flair, even if you're just doing border extensions like I do. Because yes, we are not really creating new art. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm creating something new to the world by extending this person's art, but like, you just got to be a realist. It's not. I'm not going to put this up on the internet and people are like, whoa, look at this original idea. It's definitely a paint by numbers. However, it's only paint by numbers until you get to the outside. Once you get to the outside borders, then it's pretty much up to you as your duty to come up with something cool yourself. So what I'm doing right now, if you're watching the video, is I'm doing these really faint. I combined like an orangey red and like a pinkish red, because that's the red that they're using. It's in between the two that I have. I have like a pink red, I have an orange red. So I'm following their idea of their colors. Lots of orange, and then the red they're using is like a pinkish red. I don't know how to like describe it. It's like 80% red, and then like this 20% pinkish magenta, which I appreciate. It definitely like it gives it different like spells are coming out of it. It's not just fire. There's like actual magic coming out of Tybalt's trickery. But you have to identify those things, and each color of what's coming out of the card, to make sure that if you're adding elements in, like I'm adding way more lightning than is in the original card. Once you're adding something, you want to make sure you're adding it correctly. Which, I mean, it goes without saying, but, I said it. Alright, so now that I have that, like, red down, I'm going to go over it again with this. It's a 0 liner. And I'm just barely touching it. And what that's going to do also is it's going to kind of, like, break up my orange. It's going to break up the lightning bolt a little bit and give it this cool, crackling, chaotic craziness, which I will show you how to finish in just a second. So I'm just putting down the base oranges where I want to put the base oranges. Like I kind of like identified a bunch of the reds and wanted to put a base orange over that. Then I'm going to make this like bright red piece that's coming out as well. And I mean, I don't know if lightning does this in nature, if this is an actual thing, but I like crossing my lightning bolt streams sometimes. Gives, again, more chaotic craziness going on. There's lightning bolt coming out here, lightning bolt coming out here. All right, so let's see. Yeah, Tybalt's Trickery's got some like cool little elements that are really hard to see. I will show you one of my favorites. Are these like little white lines that are around his little gauntlets? They're super cool. So if you look at the art, there are these tiny little like white lines around his handcuffs and around kind of everything going on there. Everything's got like a little like white bit, whitish yellow. I mean, it's definitely like, I'd say like mostly white, but a little bit of yellow kind of stuff coming off of him. And when you fill that in and you have that attention to detail, it really brings everything to life. Because, you know, right now you can see this little black pool that I'm making here. If I just kept it straight black, it's not going to look like the text box is breaking. And I'm going to show you how to make the text box look a little better for breaking as well. But I'm not really doing what I'm trying to, you know, convey, that it's like you're looking through the cracks in the text box. But once we put his little white lines around him, it really comes through. And when we put some lightning in there, you know, that's what we should do. Put some lightning that's coming from behind him. Really chaotic. For my lightning, I don't do more than like 3 or 4 like bolts coming off of each one. You know? So like there's maybe like, because if you do like a million bolts, I mean, like if it's long enough, I'll put a couple bolts in there. But for the most part, you're not seeing a bunch of bolts that come off of lightning in general. So what else do I have to, oh yeah, there's like his like knuckle is missing in the actual art. So you have to add the knuckle. That's another thing that people are kind of expecting of you, is to kind of finish the art that's not there. So a lot of times, you know, the art is either made with the text box in mind or not, or, you know, so wizards can edit it away. And you know, that's kind of where, in my opinion, a lot of altruists shine. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to extend the art past where the text box starts. You know what I mean? So you got kind of like going over the text box a little bit. There we go. Give this man a knuckle. It actually needs like a little line of yellow. There's like, if you get really into these pieces of art, then you just become a better artist. If you really get into this art, you just become a real better artist, because you see all little pieces of detail that they put in. Granted, we're doing this on an extremely small scale. And these people get to either do it digitally or on a bigger scale. However, I mean, it doesn't matter. There's still a crazy attention to detail. I mean, I understand they're getting paid a bunch of money, but their attention to detail is wonderful, and it really made me a better artist. Having to do that for myself, you know, I have to do better at making this look better. That was a great sentence, Steven. Thank you, Steven. All right. So, this piece, I mean, obviously I have to clean up a bunch of it, which I'll do now as we talk about the next thing we're going to do. This piece needs 3 things, because now I have a pretty good background, a solid foreground for what I kind of want. What I'm looking for are details, uniqueness, and then cleanliness. So right now, I'm going around with this little toothpick, dipping it in water every couple of scrapes and just scraping along at a nice shallow angle and taking off my acrylic that is going in the places I don't want it to go, which is amazing that we get to work in a medium where you can just have an eraser. So the fact that you have that means you should probably take advantage of it, because a lot of mediums do not have such options. So I take advantage of mine. So I'm taking out all these little, like, my paintbrush is too big, I was too sloppy, I'm at a weird angle, blah, blah, blah. Take those, take them away. Take it away now. And then if you went too hard in the paint, you can go and reapply. Reapply the places that you just ripped off too much. And if you go back and forth a bunch of times, don't worry, it happens to everybody. Really, everybody has to, you know, for me, working on my right side is harder than working on my left side for some reason, even though I'm right-handed. So the right side of my card sometimes gets a little messy, but I know that about myself, and, you know, it's just time to man up and do it, you know? Oh man, I did not think. Did I just rip? Yeah, alright, well, R.I.P. R.I.P. that little guy. Alright, so, remember I told you about those little lines? Little white, yellow lines? I'm gonna go in and put them down. Now again, I'm using this zero liner. Zero liner, tiny bit of paint. I'm using it, no, well, I fucked up. I'm using it just the very, very tip, tiny bit. And if you have to wipe off a little bit of paint, sorry, I can't talk and do all this like little stuff at the same time. If you gotta wipe off a little bit of paint, go back in, add some black to the parts that you put too much, please do so. It's these little things that people really like about your altars, is that you spend the time to really, really look at the art. And not just go, oh, it's a giant tree. Okay, there's trees here and there's not trees here. This thing's, you know, it's got a sword. The sword goes there. It looks like a sword. Like, look at the sword. Actually look at the sword. What is the hilt doing? Where are the shadows coming from? You know, all those things can make your piece incredibly memorable for someone, that they think about it and decide to buy it because there's so much goodness going on in your attention to detail. Or they just go, oh, he just kind of phoned in, you know, the sword. Or he just phoned in the whatever part of it that they don't like. Alright, so now I have a majority white, a little bit of yellow on there. So I'm kind of matching the handcuffs here. And I'm just going to go over and get a little bit more crazier than the yellow lines, than the white lines I put down, or I'm sorry, than the red lines I put down. Because this is like your energy point. Think of it as like the energy of the piece is coming out. You want to be a little bit more chaotic and non-conventional, and not have it tell you where to go, because you are like, this is the crazy lightning part. It needs to be a little bit more yellow, to be honest. So there we go. I know no dead air is good air, but I had to hold my breath to get that line down, so you're gonna have to wait. And then this is your accent. These are your highlights as well. So you go around and make sure your highlights are in there. And from there, the last part, for me at least, where is my black? Put down a fresh, tiny bit of black. We're gonna use this is a 2 that I cut down a little bit, so it's kind of just stubby. And I'm going to put some black and actual water. So I do like 3 dips of water to a good glob of black. Keep it on my wet palette. Put off a little bit off to the side and just drag it around. So I'm going to drag around kind of where I want the majority of it to be. Go over it a couple times. Make sure to get like the corners are like kind of your biggest spots to get. All right. So now it's on there. I'm kind of spreading this black inky water around. Spread it around to where I want it. Spread it, spread it, spread it. Spread it, shit. Okie dokie. So now I'm going to clean off my piece. Make sure to like really get, I mean, if you see, I had a ton of black ink still in there. So just knock it off, just go to water. And now with water, use it like a watercolor and bring it to where you want it to be. Making sure to knock off the excess black. From your piece. From your paintbrush. And because mine's stubby, I'm also kind of putting a little bit of pressure on. And that will kind of erase parts where you want it to erase parts. If you're watching the video, you'll see me like definitely taking a good chunk of this black ink out and just leaving it semi-wet, kind of like brutally put into there. And if you gotta dab it, you gotta dab it. And you want to do this quickly because, for obvious reasons, you got something trying to dry. Second last spot is right here. I get this, keep this one just a little darker, seeing it's like the piece that kind of like is falling out. And then for the nameplate, I kind of want it to be not as rough as the rest of it. So I'm just going to keep going around, making sure that this is drying correctly and pulling pieces off of it. And then we're going to go and sign it. I've been trying not to sign it as bright as possible, you know, do a nice like gray or something. So I think I'm going to make like a little gray for myself and sign it in a gray. Back in the day, I used to sign it like whatever crazy color is in the art, and I don't know, I just didn't like the look of that after a little bit. It looked way too showboaty. So now I'm doing them in grays or something easy to see. And as this is drying, I'm going to continue to like kind of like baby that little black bit around that. Other than that, just going to clean up the sides and this one's good to go. I'll see you guys next time.